Yo, what is going on, guys? It's been a while since I've uploaded a solo video, and today I'm going to be doing a deck profile on one of the best decks currently in Vanguard at the moment, which is Varga Vanguard. And goddamn, this deck, if I'm telling you, if you are new to this game and you want to get into it, Varga Vanguard is actually a pretty good deck to get into, as it's really easy to pilot. And yeah, let's get into the deck profile straight up. So I run these for the right line, pretty standard here. I'm not gonna change as much for it because I just really love the right line, because they can call themselves out for every time they got written upon. And for Varga, this unit is a really annoying unit to deal with for your opponent, because not only can it retire a single front row unit for both players, it also gets 10k, and it can also restand. But however, the very first time when you use the effect, when you restand, you lose 2 drives. So you basically minus 2 drive. And so when you attack, you basically just attack with whatever number you've built up for Varga. But here's where this unit gets extra spicy. It's the divine skill is what makes this unit extremely annoying to go against. The divine skill is when your opponent is at 4 damage or more, and you've restood twice or more during this turn, you can counterblast another one, and you can restand itself, and it also gets plus 2 drives. That is really insane. For a boss unit, this definitely stands out quite a lot. Hence why it's really one of those decks where they just top, because the Vanguard just restands, like the end. But I would say it's a bit better. So for the grade 3s, I run 3 copies of Varga because Persona Right wins 2 games, and 4 copies of the Glaive Dragon. Oh, there's one here. And last but not least, I run 1 copy of this Regalious Order. I forgot what's his name, but yeah, for these 4, just extra chances of me Persona Riding, as Persona Ride is really important in this deck because numbers don't really hit as hard. And for the Glaive Dragon, it can be retired by my effects, and it also becomes a 23k in the front row, but it also becomes a 13k booster in the back row, which is pretty solid. And mainly, personally, for me, the reason why I love Glaive Dragon so much is because this unit is a 23k body on its own in the front row, and there are just some games where I would want to retire my opponent's front row before they even get the chance to intercept with them. So, before that even happens, I have these 2 bad boys in the front row. Attack with Varga, and because I attack with Varga, it retires every single front row. But because he doesn't get affected, my Vanguard swings first, so therefore I don't lose any value, and my opponent loses 5 to 10k shield in value, which is really nice. Hence why I love running just full sets of this card. So, for the grade 2 lineups, I run 4 copies of Shura, 3 copies of Farhat, 3 copies of Boulder Axe, and 3 copies of Brachio Force. Shura being able to give itself 5k and also give one of the unit's ability of when it gets retired, bounce that unit back to hand by paying 2 energy blasts. And her other ability is if my opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3, if this unit gets retired in the front row, I can counterblast 1, call herself from the drop zone, and she gets plus 10k, which is pretty scary, because the worst thing you want in this deck is multi-attack, and Shura is able to fulfill that. And the card that synergizes really well with her is Farhat, because his ability, if he's placed in the Guardian Circle from hand, or if he's ditched, energy blast 3 or hand blast 1, draw a card, and to be able to call a grade 1 from the drop zone when you Persona Ride is pretty nice as well. So the way how this deck generates a lot of hand is by using Shura's ability, pay 2 energy blasts, give this unit the ability, if it gets retired, bounce back to hand, and when Varga attacks, counterblast 1, retires this unit, and this unit goes back to hand. And if you have 3 energy left to spare during your opponent's turn, toss this guy in the Guardian Circle, and you get to draw another card. You can be drawn to either more shield, or best card to draw, a PG. And speaking of draw power, Boulder Axe Dragon is really good. Aside from it being just in the right line, it can also get 5k when he attacks, and it can retire itself, and you can draw a card. Completely for free, by the way. All he needs to do is just attack, and he just draws a card. And he minuses a unit on the board as well, which is really nice, making him completely free for Varga, and also invulnerable to the Varga skill. I run 3 copies of Brachio Force because not only does it retire itself, it also retires one of my opponent's board, and he goes to draw a card. But the only downside to Brachio Force is that it needs to hit. It's almost the exact same mindset as playing the end, but Brachio Force is just a bit more flexible in Varga. So with the boosters that this deck has, Brachio Force can just go into really big numbers. As one of the boosters that I'm talking about, it could go up to 23k 30k in the very first grade 3 turn, which is pretty damn insane if I'm being honest. And then for grade 1s, I run 4 copies of Imbelhor Dragon and 4 copies of Madhat. I forgot, is that his name? Madhat, yeah, I think it should be. And then 4 copies of, 3 copies of the regular PG and 1 copy of Elementaria. I mean, you guys already pretty much know what these do, so I'm just gonna, like, you know, put them in the pile. Let's quickly go through their skill. So what Imbelhor Dragon does is, if this unit boosts, if I have a Varga Vanguard, it gets plus 5k power. And its other ability is, if it boosts a Varga Vanguard, it gets plus 2k power. And at the end of the battle, you can retire itself and you can draw a card. But note that its Soul Blast 1, draw 1, can only be fulfilled if it boosts a Varga. So that's the reason what makes this unit extra awkward, because it does get extra, it does become the 13k, but if you do want that extra draw, you need to boost Varga specifically. But however, this unit boosting Varga becomes 28k. Oh, sorry, it's much bigger. It becomes 38 because this unit is essentially a 15k booster with Varga's 28. With Varga's original, which Varga's skill, it becomes 38 without Persona Ride on your opponent's first grade 3 turn. That is pretty insane if I'm really being honest. And pairing up with Imbelhor Dragon, Madhat over here, what it does is it just draws 1 when your Vanguard restands, but it has to retire itself, which is good because, you know, self-removal, self-draw is really nice. This is what this deck does best. It almost feels like I'm playing Stoic Chaos when I'm playing this deck, if I'm being honest, the amount of self-retire it has. Or ironically, it does better than Zorga, if I'm being honest. To elaborate a bit more, I would really ideally always want Imbelhor Dragon to boost Varga, but there are just some games where I need to rush my opponent early. So if I were to want to put my opponent to either 1 to 2 damage early game, I would usually just throw Imbelhor Dragon on the side, and hopefully I'll be able to scrap up another Imbelhor Dragon by using other units' abilities such as Brachial Force or Fight Hard for that potential draws. And so yeah, my direction for this deck is just to be able to apply pressure early on, and that's just my playstyle essentially. So going through the trigger bit, so I run 8 crits, 3 fronts, 4 heal, and the blue over trigger. So the reason why Drag Veda or the Dragon Empire OT doesn't work is because it gets very awkward if you check into it when you use Vargas' first ability, because the restand only activates after the end of the battle. But as when you attack with Varga, when you drive check, if you do restand, you still can restand, but you lose the value because you -2 drive. So you're literally just restanding with no value. It is kind of sad, but I would understand why would they go through this kind of design. But I do see players still running Drag Veda because unfortunately the Cray Elemental OT, I forgot what's his name, is a bit too pricey, so therefore, you know, players already committed a lot of money to this deck, so you know what, they're just like, screw it, I'm gonna go YOLO. Those people are very brave, and I respect. And it's pretty self-explanatory here. Just, you know, extra front, I mean, just 8 crits win you games, and front trigger. I used to run draws, but I've noticed that this deck draws a lot, but I don't draw into any shield, because front triggers are 20k shield and draw triggers are 10k. I would rather draw into a front than a draw, if I'm being honest, because with the amount of cards this deck can draw, there's no need for me to just run draws in this deck. And yeah, there's about like 5 to 6 cards units alone that could just draw, so I don't really need any more draws. And with the drive checks as well, there's just a lot of hand for them to deal with, so therefore yeah, this is my trigger lineup. To summarize the deck profile, this deck essentially just plays around pressure. I do like the concept of running cards like this. I forgot what's his name because it's in Japanese and I really can't read Japanese. I probably special the Vanguard, but the Vanguard already restands on its own, and it's most likely that your opponent's not gonna let them hit, so therefore I really think this card is a waste of a counterblast. But whoever runs them, you're just a brave individual if you run that, because I can't. And I would say that this deck is really fine, and I've noticed that people also run the Dragon Empire Cycler, that you're able to retire your opponent's whole column when you Persona Ride, and Soul Blast 1, put the bottom, draw a card. I really like that, but I don't really see myself playing that card, because it's not only that, but it's really flexible, I get that, but I just really prefer running Brachio Force because my direction of this deck is to force my opponent to guard as early as possible, or I just melt their hand, so when Varga attacks and one time they no guard, gets to crit, and it just restands, provides more pressure. And this deck also allows Shura to move a bit more frequently, as you don't really do much with a CB other than with a Varga or Shura as a skill. Unless if it's a dire situation and you have no more energy blast, you can use Far as a skill as well. But it's best advised that you shouldn't. Yeah, so to summarize this to summarize my build once again, this deck is mainly designed to be aggressive early game and to melt my opponent's hand as much as possible, or to also melt their board as much as possible, and to be able to flexibly use Shura, because Shura is the main reason what makes this deck extra annoying to go against. And therefore, yeah, that's pretty much it for my deck profile. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care, keep hustling, keep playing, and take care. Peace.